Notice of the meeting was provided to the Westfield Reader. Advertised on January 4, 2018. Notification was sent to the Star Ledger, promptly posted in the municipal bulletin board, and filed in the office of the municipal clerk, warned the public in time and place according to the provisions of the Open Public Meeting Law, Chapter 231, PL 1975. Good evening, everyone, and welcome. This evening, we have Michael Baines for the New Jersey American Water Company for a presentation tonight. Mike, want to step forward?
Sure. A lot of props, sorry.
No, I think we have a stand. Do you give a stand?
I could just bring one of the chairs over.
Yeah,
Okay,
if
go.
you don't mind, thank you. Looks like you've done this before.
I think you want to come that the other way.
But I can't see it.
I think you want
Yeah.
to show them one.
I had two of them, I was gonna put the second one
Maybe we can pass it around.
Yeah,
It's
okay.
kind of small.
on. I had two of them, so.
Are you going to leave these behind?
Okay, here we go. Want to pass it around?
Sure, want me to hold it? Middle person shot?
So good evening, everybody.
Evening.
Mayor, council, thank you for having us tonight.
Yes, I know.
So New Jersey American Water, my name is Mike Baines. I've been there for 30 years. I'm your operations manager, and I handle Garwood as one of my towns of the 24 that I do handle currently. So tonight, New Jersey American Water would like to present this project to Garwood. We're looking to invest $3 million into the south side of Garwood. Some of the maps are going around. I'll kind of talk through the map, but the first thing I'd like to show you is this picture, which kind of spells out the story of what we currently have there. This is the current main in the ground. Right now, the tuberculation's built up inside. What we want to do is, with the new project, this is what it'll look like when it's finished. So it's called the main cleaning project. This would be the main after it's done. Basically what we do is we scrape out the inside of the main, and we put a 3M product inside, a liner product, and that gets troweled to the inside by a special machine, blown in, and then surface troweled out when we're done. With this, we improve the water quality to the area. We also improve the infrastructure so that you won't see main breaks, you won't see leaks anymore. We're going to come in and replace approximately 350 services in this area. All the hydrants, all the valves for this project will all be replaced. So we're going to pretty much have brand new infrastructure on the south side here. So on the map, we're going up in highlighted areas. Obviously, we're coming from South Avenue down to the end here on Center, going across to the dead ends, and then completely going east to cover the whole town of Garwood, except for Willow, which has been, it's not highlighted because that was pre-done with brand new main about 2 years ago, that project. So everything in the highlighted area will get fully new and lined.
What about the north side? What about the north side?
At this point, we don't have anything planned for the north side. We did some work there a couple years ago. Like everything else, I have to share the wealth when we go to different towns. Last year we were in Roselle, North Plainfield, Cranford, Westwood. We've been jumping around town to town and trying to spread the money that we get from the Board of Public Utilities approval to do this work.
Mike, what's the time frame on this project?
Time frame is, I would need an answer as soon as possible because the budget money's there and I got to go in for final approval on the budget. So we would like to start, I would say, mid-February.
Start this project?
Yeah,
You don't-
services, just the service part of the project. What happens is the first, it's going to go in let's talk about it in 3 phases. So the first phase, we would go in and renew all the services to all the homes on the north side. Sorry, the south side, excuse me, on the south side. Once that's completed, we would look to midsummer correct me if I'm wrong, Jason's this is my contractor from J. Fletcher Kramer, and I have my inspector RJ, who will be running the project. And his phone number will be on a handout, and we'll be given out to all residents. So if there's an issue, RJ's call. So you have a communication point.
Welcome to Garwood.
Thank you.
It's not a problem. So basically, let me go back to the phases. So we're gonna renew all the services first.
Can you clarify what you mean? So you're just like reconnecting?
What we're gonna do is, we're gonna go in and the service that you have currently on this main to the curb stop in the street, behind curb, that's gonna get completely renewed. American Water is responsible from the main in the street to the shut-off valve at your curb. That's the area between your sidewalk and curb area. There's a shut-off valve there. That's our responsibility on the service. From the curb stop going into the home is the owner's responsibility to maintain that line. So what we're gonna do is, first phase of it is renew all the services. Once that is complete, I would say sometime around June, we're gonna go in and start putting bypass main up. That's the plastic main. I'm sure you've seen it in different areas around. If you've been around to Cranford, Westfield, we've done a lot of towns. Basically, what we're gonna do is put temporary mains up above ground. It's 4-inch plastic lines. There'll be hydrant connections off of those for fire protection. Once that's installed, we do a flush. It gets tested, fluoridated, and then once it's released from our lab that it's clear, then we'll start transferring the services to the homes over to the temporary main. Once that's done, then we can shut down the old main that's there and start the project as far as the scraping and then the new liner going in to the main. So we're looking to do that part of the project over the summer months. Probably finish, I would say, late September as a completion date, and then full restoration will be done towards October, just to give enough time for everything to settle out. We'll come back. I know Center Street was just paved. We're gonna take Center Street on. We're gonna repave it curb to curb. We're not gonna leave you with a chessboard out there. This project is less intrusive than going in and us ripping up the road straight down the street and disturbing everybody. What we're doing is we're having small openings, 8 by 10s at the intersections and then wherever a hydrant is. And then when we're done, we put that all back together, brand new valves, brand new hydrants. So the whole infrastructure is completely new. Sure.
How flexible are you with phase 2? It may sound silly, but we have a huge street fair here in the very beginning of June.
Okay.
And I know you said June, midsummer, so how flexible are you to do something afterwards? Because that would kind of, that might get in the way.
What date it would be this street fair?
June 3rd.
June 3rd? Shouldn't be a problem. Should be a problem. We can move in and start after your street fair. So not to affect, excuse me one second, not to affect everybody or the residents.
Another question for you, Mike.
Yep.
Thank you for the presentation. We do have a potential, a Center Street project in process right now, will be in process next year, from South Avenue to Willow Avenue,
Okay.
just that portion of Center Street.
Yep.
We were able to get an infrastructure grant from Union County towards that. How can we make this most efficient? Because while I think overall this project is certainly worthy, and it is great to have you investing in Garwood, and ultimately this will benefit the residents with water quality and so forth. Watching those streets of Center Street get ripped up after we've done 2 separate projects with it is just really heartbreaking. I would really hate to see a third one. I know you'll be paving those streets on Center Street, and that's good, but in the sense, the water company's expenses, as they jack up, so do the prices. So I know it's spread out amongst all the homeowners, but it's still heartbreaking. So what do we think about the 3rd Center Street project from South to Willow? Maybe Mike Disco's opinion on it. Can we hold off?
We did it,
We did it already.
Finished. We just did it, we just finished it.
Yeah, it's
We're
already
running.
done.
But he's gonna replace it curb to curb anyway.
Williamson, is that,
Yeah.
really?
Yeah.
We just finished.
Just finished?
In November.
Just
Sorry about that.
November,
Okay.
December.
I apologize. I
No,
don't
no,
know how I didn't notice that.
Yeah.
Goes quick, I have
You're
to
gonna
say.
pay
Very
Okay.
Center Street from South Avenue to the park, curb to curb, regardless of the fact that the
Well,
city
no,
of Center
we're gonna
Street-
go to the limits that you paved
Okay.
already.
So let's.
Sorry, let me
clear on that.
retract
They're
that
not-
statement.
They're not doing any more than what
We're
we
we're
already.
gonna do the limits that you paved, same back to the condition it's currently at.
So then, on the other streets, Mike and I are looking right now, but there's definitely, I think, some of those streets that were redone within 5 years. We haven't.
Okay, or if they're in the moratorium, then we'll discuss about redoing those also. The problem is, when we get into repaving, and this is not new to this, it's every town is the same, when everybody wants a brand new road. The problem is, like you just said before, about pricing. We go to the Board of Public Utilities and we get a rate case, that gives us the amount of time and money to do this work. And we all share in that cost, not just Garwood residents, but all the towns throughout the whole company share in that. It's not just Garwood, not just Cranford, not Westford. Everybody shares in that cost to kind of reduce the water bill and not drive the prices through the roof. So with that being said, normally we do infrared on any of the newer roads. If that's not acceptable to you, we'll talk about the possibility of paving curb to curb. But the problem is, then the budget gets shot up, and it just causes limitations of how much we can do. This project is also, not only is there any firemen in the house?
Not right here.
Okay. We're gonna double your fire flows when this is done. Double your fire flows currently, what you have. And that will bring down your ISO insurance prices later on when you have, I'm sure you'll have an ISO audit, if you haven't had one already, and that bases your rateables of what you're paying for your insurance in town. But that'll be something also you'll save money on.
Is that actual a picture of our pipe, or is that just a sample of what they look like?
It's a sample of what they look like.
Okay.
But if I was to open one up and bring it into you, it might be worse than this.
And how often do you have these monies that, because you're only doing half of Garwood?
Right,
So how long-
so I'm not just doing Garwood, I have 24 other
Right.
towns, we're doing the same project in North Plainfield. We finished up Roselle last year. Those are the 2 towns planned for next year. North Plainfield, I have my approvals, we're all set and ready to go. We did all the services during the wintertime, from October to December, those services were done and completed. So all we're going in there now is to do the cleaning itself and lining. Here, it's a little bit different because I have to first go in and renew all the services. And I will tell you this, there's galvanized services that homeowners have. If we can't tie into that galvanized, we're going to renew that galvanized service into the home also. So it'll be cost savings on anybody who has galvanized currently at their inside service line.
Would that be somebody who upgraded their?
They may not have upgraded, but if somebody did not upgrade and they have galvanized currently, we're going to take that on and renew that service into the home for them.
Mike,
So we're going to take care of the customer side.
sorry, could
Yes.
you talk to me about the communication, if we go forward with this plan, like what kind of communication you'll be doing with the residents?
Perfect. So we'll gladly come to any future meetings if you want to have an open session again. We also have a door-to-door pamphlet that'll go out to every resident. We will ask you to put it up on your website, and we can field any questions that may come up in the future.
Will that number of I'm sorry, I forgot the person who's going to be in charge.
RJ?
RJ, will RJ's number or contact information?
RJ's phone number and
On that
contact
flyer.
will be on that flyer.
Okay.
And you'll also have it here at Town Hall. And for most of you, I'm sure you have my card and my number, so I get a lot of, my phone's with me 7/24. Unfortunately, I can't let that go, so.
Michael,
Yes.
so how do you make or how many protrusions do you have to make to reline this pipe? I mean,
So,
at exit at A and you stop at B, how long is that?
so basically what we do, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jason, we want to help you on this one. Usually it's like 200 to 500 feet.
About 500 feet, so give or take, anywhere up to 600 feet, we're able to line. So we'll make an access pit, try to make the least amount of access pits as possible. So granted, so say it's a 9,000 foot project, so every 500 feet you have an access pit.
So minimal protrusions through the center of the road, if that's where the pipe is.
Yeah, depending on where the main is, it might be on towards the curb line, it might be in the middle, or I'm not
And
sure.
then the average home is probably 2 protrusions with a water jet or something, is that how that would work? How do you get from that pipe to the curbside?
There's usually it'd be 3 openings.
3 openings,
So, one at the main itself,
correct?
one at the curb itself, and we all have gas.
Mhm.
We have to uncover the gas for safety.
So those are much smaller holes.
Yes,
those
yes,
services.
yes.
So you're looking at like a 2x6 opening at the main, so we can make a new tap, tie that all in. You're looking at a 4x4 at the curb, and a 2x2 to go over the gas main, so we can identify the gas main.
That's,
When you say 4x4 at the curb box, is that what you're talking about?
Yes, at the curb
So that
box.
could be behind the
Behind the
curb.
curb.
Could be, yeah, it's behind the curb, yeah, I'm sorry. The road openings would only be 2, the
Yeah.
secondary one would, the third one would be behind curb.
And the gas, the opening over the gas is only on the long service side, right
Correct.
crossing it.
Yes.
As one of the council people asked, when will the communication information be available to the borough?
As soon as you say yes to this project. I
Um,
would need like a week just to put it through my communications group and do a professional printout. It's a 2-pager. It basically explains the whole project. It gives you some pictures and examples of what we're doing. And again, we're more than welcome to come back and talk to anybody at any time.
one more simple question, if I may.
Sure.
I think it's gonna be a benefit to the borough because I'm sure a lot of these houses that have old water mains, this galvanized pipe especially, when you do your new copper, the water pressure in your house is gonna be like, thank you very much, can take a nice shower now and so on and
Yes.
so forth, so it's gonna be a benefit.
Thank you, yes. Also, every town's aggressively paving. I'm sure you have a paving plan already for the coming year. What we've run into a lot of times, and I know it's happened here, get your paving done, you start, you do your milling, boom, we get a leak. Because of the vibration, right? An old pipe will leak, could be a galvanized line leaking. Also, it could be while you're putting the blacktop down with the rollers, vibration of the rollers. We've done many repairs with that. So this helps you in that whole area. If you're gonna pave different roads at different times, that infrastructure is solid now. You don't have to worry about us coming back and digging up new roads, which I hate to do. I really hate it. But this is what we have. We have over 100-year-old mains that are in there, not just this town, many of our towns. But we don't get all the funds that we need going and do a full rehab of everything. So we have to do it in piecework.
Just one more question. So, in terms of how do you guys determine which towns you're choosing? Is there some sort of timeline that you have as when the last time, or you're just basically kind of just randomly selecting?
We randomly select. Basically I shouldn't say randomly, we basically do a main break count of how many breaks we've had in the township. We look at water quality problems that we've had from the lab. We have water quality people that come out and test. Residents call, they have something wrong, they're not happy with they're getting rust color into their house. That's coming from this. When you get a dirty shot of water in your home, that's the tuberculation breaking off the main. That's sending that dirty water into the home.
So could we presume that, part of the reason why you selected this particular section of Garwood is that you've heard from our residents in that section where they're having those types of problems?
Break counts, age,
Okay.
water quality issues.
Must not be happening enough on the north side of Warwick.
Guess not.
Is there any logistical things that you could think of that could prohibit it, that you would want to stop it for, Tina? And
No.
Chief Wright, do you see anything that could stop you, would, get in your way of your normal course of business?
We're actually very familiar with this project. It's been done in Westfield and Cranford. We've had the opportunity to work these side jobs in both towns. And I can tell you from my experience already, I've had the opportunity to look at the pipes in those towns. And again, on Hickory, I believe, too, right?
Yes.
And it's very similar to what he showed you in those pictures. But in terms of how we operate, it's not going to affect how we operate. Like I said, we're familiar with the project, and it's not going to be an issue for us.
And we'll have your officers will be out there doing traffic control for you. So.
Just to clarify, so you're looking to start mid-February as long as you get the okay from us pretty much tonight. Sounds like we might be prepared to do. And then, well, you have my vote, I'll say that. Definitely the good outweighs the negative here. And we have to think long-term. And then also, you said a total finish date late October? Is that right?
Yeah, that's for final restoration. So
Final.
we want to go in and make sure that when we do backfilling, we do compaction,
Mhm.
there's always some settlement. So we want to make sure the ground's settled, the trenches are tight, so then we can go in and do the final restoration on those.
Okay.
So that we don't come back a year from today and you see
Mhm.
that they did it. You know, we don't want to have any of that.
Right, okay.
So the more time we can give that, that's why we usually say like end of October, beginning of November, we've done a lot of the cleanup.
Sounds good. And I definitely appreciate the aggressive communication plan for the public. You had mentioned coming to speak at a public meeting. I mean, certainly I would not know how many people to expect at those. You probably had them quite a bit. In Garwood, I'm proud to say we have a pretty engaged public. So even you can see tonight, you have more citizens compared to the population than some towns have at their public meetings. So do you think this room's big enough? Should we try to organize something at our school?
I would ask you guys what you think. If you think we need to move the school, if you think you're gonna get a bigger crowd, that this is gonna bust the seams for you, or it's a safety concern, I would be concerned with that. That's,
I asked you
leave that in
because
your hands.
you're
I
the-
see when we do these meetings, you know, some places have bigger rooms. So
Mhm.
it all depends, like, you might not get the north side people come over, it's gonna be really the people that are on these streets
Right.
in purple are gonna come, so that I'd leave up to your hands. I do draw a big crowd. Like I said, when I did this in
Okay.
Fanwood for Colleen, I'm sure you're aware, when I did Colleen's, it was packed,
Okay.
standing room only.
How big of an area? About the same number of
Their areas-
residents affected, or was it a bigger
The
project?
map she's looking.
Oh, no, it was,
Yeah.
same size,
Same size,
pretty
about a
much
$3
same
million
size.
project?
Yeah,
And that room was
Exactly.
packed there in Fanwood?
packed, yeah.
Okay.
Currently now, we're doing, Fanwood, I don't know if they're all that happy. We've been doing a lot of work in Fanwood, and it's because of we're putting a brand new main, upsizing our main that's currently there. So we've done a ton of work on North Avenue. We're putting a new 30-inch main in there, so can you imagine the size of that? And that's going to one of my plants to back up, reinforce the eastern end of the system. So we've been doing a lot of work there, and whatever issues that they had, we've taken care of. Colleen has me on speed dial, so.
I'm sure we all.
And the
will, right?
residents, and, you know, RJ wasn't part of that, my other inspector, Jerry, he was out there,
Mhm.
took care of as many issues as we can. I just want to make sure the customers are happy. If they're not, I want to know about it,
Mhm. Appreciate that.
you know?
All right, so I mean,
I have one more
I think it's
question.
something
Sure.
we need
So
to-
this is a $3 million project, and it's absolutely no cost to Garwood at all?
No,
Okay.
no, what happens is, you know, you get your water bill, in your water bill is where we get the funds to do these projects.
Well, the water bill has gone up. It used to be $52 a quarter, and now it's $50 a month.
I agree 100%.
You know, it's
My
astronomical.
water bill in the summertime, when I was watering my lawn, was over $200 a month. I love a green grass, I'm a little crazy like that.
Well, I don't know why the bills went that much. I mean, you're talking, I mean, from getting.
We're
billed-
still, and I'm gonna say this, we're still cheaper than any other utility. What you're paying for your cable, your phone, your internet package,
Well, that's all
compare
too much
that.
money.
You can't live without the water. We can live without internet and all that other access cable and stuff. We are still the cheapest utility out there.
But it's an astronomical increase. I did call up one time. She goes, well, it's been that way for years. And I said, well, maybe I haven't noticed it. But from $50 a quarter
I
to
think
$50 a
the
month.
biggest change was when we went from quarterly billing to
Yeah.
monthly.
Right,
And believe it or not, residents asked us for that.
they did?
Yes. Believe it or not, the residents asked us because everybody plans their billing
It's easier for
monthly
budgeting.
for budgeting,
Correct.
right? You pay a monthly mortgage, you pay your other utilities monthly. We were the only company out there, utility-wise, that you could pay quarterly. So that was a change when we did that.
Well, it was a good thing monthly, but not when the bill goes up so much money. But, you know.
I'm in there with you. I don't set the rates. I have to pay them too, though.
Is there any more questions of the council?
Yeah. Michael, can I
Yes.
give you one more question
Sure.
for you? Do you pay as much attention to fixing that little piece of grass from the curbside as you do fixing the roadside?
Yes.
So as the
We
dirt
have-
settles, you might get a call back from a
Yep, we go out
homeowner
and put new
okay.
seed. If you have sod there, we're gonna replace it with sod.
Okay.
You know, fresh topsoil and
Thank you
seed
very
is the
much.
basic. If you have sod there, we're gonna put sod back there.
The only thing I ask, just because I've seen it for the past few years, is in the heat of August, the fall sun is
Yeah, right.
ready to go.
Exactly.
We hold off because nothing's
So
gonna
you
grow.
don't have
in
green
August.
grass like that?
So we usually wait till September.
Well, some people
hits
don't
and
want to
then
water them either, so I've gone back
Okay,
3
that's-
times to some homes that have sod, and because they didn't water it, it died.
Right.
So you have to keep on it, so.
That's it for me.
Yes, Mike.
The purple streets that you're
Yes.
gonna be doing, are they all gonna be under construction at the same time? In other words, all the temporary mains will be up?
Yes, when we put the grid out, that will be, for the most part, yes, because at that same time, I have to provide fire protection to this town.
You can't do 1 or 2 streets at a time?
No, because I'm pulling off, surrounding us, I have a 16-inch main back here and a 20-inch main back here. I have to take off of those to pump this system up. And I want to keep sure that the fire flow is there to provide safe fire to everybody, protection.
There's projected paving this year on Hickory and Spruce.
Okay?
Can those be front-loaded in terms of the actual excavation that you perform? Only because if we're gonna have settlement, I'd rather have that front-loaded.
I would ask you if you could hold off to any paving till October, September. This way we're done and out of here.
The spruce one, I don't think is in the affected area, the hickory one, I think is.
Hickory from center to east would be, Spruce was from Oak.
It's on the other side.
Gotcha.
So the hickory one.
It's just
is-
this block.
You're right.
The hickory one.
Yeah, this is the other. Actually, it is, Oak East is, for those two.
Oh, no.
Two, yeah.
Yeah, that one.
This
Just the spruce one won't be
The
affected.
spruce won't be affected, but yes.
See, the first thing we do is we're gonna go in, like I said, we're gonna go in and renew all the services. Once that's done, we're gonna come back when it gets warmer after your street fair and then start putting the grid of plastic pipes out. Start building the water system above ground. But I would ask if you have any projects planned.
We were getting ready to last bid, right?
Well, we're in design right now. I mean, we could proceed to DOT and, just wait on the bidding then. It doesn't make sense to bid in February,
No.
March, and you're gonna wait till September. Maybe we could do some of the work, the curb work, I suppose, but I think at this point, there's no rush. It's the bottom down here, and then some.
But we do have restricted, we do have time with DOT.
Okay.
I would just ask what other streets that you say are in the moratorium, if we could look into that
We're
and
gonna check it.
check that out, let me know, and then get back to you on those.
I mean, I have your map, Mayor, so you have the dates on there, and there are a couple that are in the 5
Okay.
So do you have Mike's, do you have Mike's contact information?
Yes.
Okay, so maybe you can let me know which ones.
I
It
can
sounds
leave,
like you're gonna have an opening at the intersection, every fire hydrant, and then every house, 1 or 2.
yes.
So there's gonna be a lot of openings on these days, street sections.
But he said he paid those. He said if they were 5 years.
If they're in the 5-year moratorium, I'll come back and pay them.
So.
But for those that are not, the best thing is we can do infrared and those, and that kind of, it's like putting wall-to-wall carpeting in your house. When they match the carpeting together, that's the seal they put when they do infrared, so it's seamless.
Okay. Any other questions from the council?
I can leave both maps if you like.
Please?
There you go.
That you said you need something from us tonight.
I would really love to get something tonight, because then I can start expediting everything, working on the communication. I have to go to the,
It's not gonna be a resolution, this is not done by resolution, it's just you say to him, it's okay.
I assume that, what I'm hearing, that we have a consensus to go forward with this project?
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, thank you, Mike.
Since this is going to start in mid-February and it's already, we're on the second half of January, can we, I think this meeting that he's discussing should be a special meeting of the council. It should not be part of a regular council meeting. We have a lot on our agenda usually at regular council meetings, so can we pick
Indicated this room will hold 90.
okay, it can
We
be
should-
located
I
here.
agree with the
I'm just saying it should be a separate night than a
No,
regular
I'm
council
not
meeting.
disagreeing, I'm just saying.
So, I don't know if we want to start discussing dates now while we're all up here, because I think it would be great if we can give the public a couple weeks' notice at least. Before they see the water company come in and they say, what are they doing here? Granted, they'll have the drops.
Before
and
we
the
even
lights.
hit the street, there'll be communications out
Oh.
on every phase that
It's on
we
my
do.
phone and my, yeah, I gotta go get it.
Want to go get it? Probably worth getting.
So what date would you specifically say that it probably
Let
likely
me
start?
get my phone and get my
Because
calendar.
obviously we would like to hold the meeting before it starts.
How about Monday, February 12th? If that's not enough time, I can say.
It works for me.
So then.
What time?
Probably at 7 PM.
Well, that's one thing I'd like to go over is start times. What we found in doing this in other towns. I don't know what your busing is like, but we went and moved to 8:30 start times, just so we can get.
No, we mean the meeting start times.
Oh, I'm sorry. I think
Oh,
you're
okay.
talking about the project.
I was like 8:30 at night, what?
This would be your start of the project.
I'm sorry, Monday, February 12th is when we'd like to kick it off. That's
Oh, okay.
mid-February, I'm sorry.
So,
Okay.
So we would need to.
You tell me when you want me to be here for your meeting.
What about Tuesday the 6th, February 6th? Actually, that's a council meeting.
No,
Sean?
13 or 27.
So what about?
it's up to
President.
Councilwoman, Council President Blumenstock, if it's her birthday.
Wonderful birthday present.
Oh. We need dates. Tuesday
Are you
birthday.
bringing the cake?
I'll take these for drinks
I don't
after.
think I
Oh, get that around town.
President's not available on that day.
You're not available on that day.
Okay.
What about Monday the 5th or Wednesday the 7th?
I can do.
I could push it a week and go to the 19th, and then would the 13th work for you, Tuesday the 13th?
That's a council
That's
meeting.
the council.
Oh, I'm sorry.
What happened to the
5 is
7th?
good for me.
There's a PTA meeting.
Seventh, I have a library meeting that way. Skip that. Detail.
Why would we do the separate council meeting?
Why would we or why
Why
wouldn't
would
we?
we?
Are you asking why we would not?
Why would we not?
Because the regular council meeting is usually quite jam-packed and long. And this sounds like it will be possibly a packed house and could be lengthy too. So if we had the water company start at 7 and they don't finish until 8:30,
February 1st. Is that enough time? We might not be enough time.
probably not enough time to get it out there. It sounds like the 7th could work. I mean, there's a library meeting and PTA.
How do you expect the public to be notified about this meeting?
Well, one would be certainly the website, I would imagine.
Yeah, those
It
are
would be
easy
good
ways.
if we could do a press release to the paper.
That's also
And
easy.
then,
But a
as
mailing or
Mike-
something like that.
well, as Mike pointed out, he's going to be doing a
Yeah, are
door-to-door
you
pamphlet. So would
able
that
to include that
advertise the meeting?
information about the meeting on your
That's-
pamphlet or no? Is that?
Usually we don't do that in the information, because it's all about the preset, like it's all about the project.
Mhm.
Is it possible?
When does the
to
Garland
find that?
paper come out? When does that come out?
It will be,
After
Once a month.
we've already
I know
missed the
that.
deadline because they want it
Okay.
by mid-month.
24th. Yeah, that was the email we sent.
Right, so, all right.
That brings up a good point, having it at the council.
I would think you'd want to have your meeting before I start putting them
Yes.
flyers on the street. That was the
I
other.
would think so too.
you know.
So the 6th,
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a problem with a council meeting unless you think we're gonna be here till the next day.
I think we're gonna be here till the next
Yeah,
day.
it's too long, I mean.
I mean, I was actually surprised to hear him say there's a packed house in Fanwood, but, I mean, they're only a little bigger than we are,
How long was your meeting?
so.
I got in on the first section, so I was there for about 50 minutes. You know, with their opening roll call and all that, and then I jumped right
So
in.
that's- you did it as part of the council meeting?
Yeah.
I'm not posting, you just,
I'm
we're already
not-
40 minutes in.
Yeah, I mean, I have no problem with that either, but.
That's all I'm thinking, we gotta be efficient.
We have to.
Yeah.
So that was scheduled for.
Yeah, I mean,
But,
yeah, I've been here plenty of times until 11 at night, so I'll be first.
Maybe just adjust your agendas.
But he's going to start on the 12th. That's the other problem.
Well, I'm
It's
open,
Monday.
I mean, we could,
can you
Are you willing to?
I'm
push
flexible
it
with.
to the following?
Yeah, sure. You wanna start the 19th?
Yeah,
Yeah.
That's,
Okay.
yeah,
and then we can have it on the 13th.
because then, if you want me on the 13th, right?
Yeah.
At
So
7.
And then, right, at 7, and then what I could do by Thursday, Friday, the 15th and 16th, we're hitting the streets with the pamphlets.
Okay.
Okay.
Good time.
That works.
Okay?
Sounds good?
So, all right, so the
Thank you.
13th,
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Was that council leaving authorization to the water company to do the project?
Yes, that's correct.
Yes.
Right.
So anything they are authorized.
thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for coming to Barwood.
Thank
Hope
you.
to see you again.
Yep.
Thank you.
Look forward to seeing you on the 13th.
Yes.
Thank you.
7 o'clock again, right?
Just kidding.
I get the yells.
And I'll have the flyer to bring that night.
Please? Yes.
For you to take a look at, we can hand some out here if we need to, but I'll make sure we have a stack of flyers that are gonna go to street, house to house.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yep.
Thank you. Should we continue, council?
Yeah.
Mr. Disco is going to leave.
No, no.
Anybody have anything? Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll call you about it.
Good night, everybody. Thanks
Thank you,
again.
take
Thank you.
care. Good night, RJ.
Thanks, Mike. You got it.
See you, Mike.
Take care, Mike.
Great seeing everybody. I just wanted to make sure that you just say you follow questions.
Thank you.
My cell phone number is
I'm
on.
good, thank you. I got it.
My cell phone's on there. Any other
I have it,
questions?
but it's been a while.
I'm good, Mike. I guess I got it.
All right, yes, you did.
I have to tell you, everybody, that whenever Mike does work in town, or any of the work companies, one phone call, and before I can hang up, they're there. If there's a problem, if there's a problem, you guys.
Gotta get
pop it
taken
up.
care of.
So,
Guys, have a great night.
Thank you.
take care, Mike.
They're gonna keep the maps.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, yes.
Thank you.
You'll have them for the next meeting.
Yes, they will. Put them in the office.
We'll get you
Yes, I'll see
information.
you.
Okay.
North side.
Mr. Nanad, do you have something for the council this evening?
Sure, Mayor, thank you. Let me just sort of update you on the affordable housing case. I have a case management conference, I guess you'd call it, on Friday with the court and all the other parties in the case. Fair Share Housing Center, K&K Developers, the Special Master, et cetera. We are updating the court. I have a letter actually drafted that's going out tomorrow to the judge. I was ordered to send a sort of an interim report on how we're doing, so I'll kind of go through it and tell you so that you know. We had a list of tasks to do that we were assigned by the court in the last order, which was dated November 28th of 2017. So these are the things that have been accomplished since, I guess our last report was December 15th, and I actually think I reported to you on that on the 16th. So you're pretty much in step with what, I'm sorry, not the 16th, the 26th. So you're pretty much in step with what we're advising the court. So the planner has finished what is hopefully the final housing element and fair share plan, and has submitted it to the special master for review. Assuming that that meets with her approval, we'll then offer that to the planning board, ask the planning board to adopt it, and then you will be asked to in essence, endorse it again and adopt the necessary ordinances in accordance with the plan. As you know, the South Avenue 1 redevelopment plan was adopted. Revisions have been made, and those revisions are, I believe, in front of you by way of an ordinance tonight, are they not? A resolution, that's right, to refer it to the planning board. So those revisions have been drafted. The South Avenue 2 plan, as you know, was adopted on the 26th, so we're reporting that to the court that that's been done. We did the resolutions last month, the intent to fund shortfall, there was the administrative agent and the affordable housing liaison. The planner is now working on an affirmative marketing plan. You probably are as aware as I am of what's going on with the paperboard site, but my understanding is that the subcommittee has had some meetings with the developer and is scheduling another meeting hopefully for next week. Thus far, obviously, there hasn't been any agreement as to the terms of a development plan, and as long as the parties are talking and attempting to reach agreement, I'm not overly concerned, although I suppose the court will have something to say to us on Friday about what the court expects us to do with respect to the paperboard site. I think I've indicated to you in the past, I mean, we're not compelled to accept whatever it is that the developer throws at us. On the other hand, we are constrained to be reasonable. So somewhere in there, hopefully is an agreement, and hopefully it will be reached soon. And if it's not, we'll bring the special master in and see if he can work some magic and come up with some solutions. That's Special Master 2, that's Mr. Caton. Special Master 1, Ms. McKenzie has requested some revisions to the affordable housing ordinance, which I'm in the process of drafting. I would anticipate that I will have them to you hopefully fairly soon, and perhaps they can be introduced at the next meeting. They're all technical, have to do with, you know, the 1 in 5 requirement and what happens if somebody is required to do a fractional part of an affordable unit. So for example, if it was let's say 12 units and you had to do 15%, what happens? So those are all, again, technical items, which hopefully are not going to be relatively, I'm not going to say simple, but relatively non-controversial, I hope. And the revised spending plan that was required has been submitted to the special master. That was a list of 10, so all those things have been done, except for the one thing that I told you which had not been quite completed, which was the affirmative marketing plan. So we're making progress. As of now, we're still scheduled for the 12th of March at 1:30 for a compliance hearing. As I said, I'm meeting with the court on Friday at 10, and the next time we get together, I'll let you know, hopefully in briefer fashion, what transpired on January 26th. Just to change gears, I'd also like to update you in the executive session, of course, on the status of tax appeals, but I don't want to do that tonight because I think we've done, frankly, enough between the water company and my report for tonight. So perhaps if it meets with your approval next meeting, we could do an executive session for maybe 20 minutes, and I can update you on what's happened since the last time I gave you a report on tax appeals and where I think we're going with that.
Just give me a reminder, like maybe the Friday before that.
Okay.
So
I'll try.
I
Is that
think
Mr.
we'll-
Donato?
between the two of us, we should remember, right?
That's it.
I'll be the wild card.
Okay, appreciate it.
Thank you. Mr. Donato, is that all?
That's it. Thank you, Mayor.
Any questions of Mr. Donato this evening? Hearing none, we'll move on. Ms. Ariema, do you have
No report,
anything?
ma'am.
Any unfinished business? Any new business? Just have a couple of quick things. I'd like to thank Crunch Gym for hosting Mayor Saturday this past weekend, and Carol Carney for setting up the event, and Council President Blumenstock joining me at the event. I'd like to thank all who stopped by and had many positive comments about Garwood. Once again, I would like to welcome Garwood Times to our town. The editor of the Garwood Gazette, on my behalf, has sent an email to all departments and committees, so they send all their articles to the Garwood Times on a monthly fashion for publication of the next month. We move on, comments and matters for discussion from members of the council. Council President Blumenstock.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to give the council some background to ordinance 18-02 that you see on the agenda, because it does pertain to streets and roads. This particular ordinance refers to the salaries of the Department of Public Works, but in particular the foreman's salary. Last year, when we were undergoing the process of selecting a new foreman, as I read through the contract, I noticed that it currently has the position making only an additional $3 an hour. It turns out that salary rate has not been looked at or changed in over 2 decades. I also found out that longevity is obviously no longer available to the DPW employees as it was when the salary was created. So laborers that have been employed for a long time and grandfathered in may be making the same or close to the foreman. And of course, at the time the salary was determined, benefits were fully paid for, something they no longer are. I brought all this to the committee, and we discussed the various ways the foreman's responsibilities have also increased, just as we've moved along technology-wise. So compared to the other towns, surrounding towns, we discovered that we are way below what other foremen's rates are, and so it came out 2-to-1 out of this committee that we increased the foreman's salary from the $3 an hour extra to $6 an hour. We are still at the low end of surrounding towns, but it's what we think is fair and equitable. So,
Is that all?
that's all for me, thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Kukrow.
Nothing, Mayor.
Councilman Lazaro.
I just want to briefly let the council know, if you haven't got a chance to check out what our town clerk, Tina Ariema, did with the money that we gave her for remodeling the building here. You should definitely check it out. She did a great job. I just want to,
Kudos, thank you.
I'm
really
not
congratulate
finished
you.
yet, I'm really, I'm almost finished, but I can't believe we just, look at the space we wasted all this time. It's a big project.
It's really great, and I think you deserve a lot of praise for that, because, it's nice to see that when we give money towards something, it's actually going towards something that we see the results. So thank you for your hard work putting that together.
And if I may add, the workmanship is excellent. I spoke to the gentleman once or twice.
So everyone on the council should definitely check it out if you haven't got a chance to see
I
it.
already have, it does look wonderful.
Yeah.
The furniture's being delivered this week, security people are coming, copy machines coming next week. By the end of next week, they'll be up and running and people will be working with them.
Very good. Thank you. Councilman McCormick.
I have nothing, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilman Sarno.
Yeah, Mayor, I have a couple questions in regards to ordinance 18-02. How did this all originate? I mean, I know you said you perused through everything, but how did you just take it into committee, and now I just have the ordinance in front of me up for introduction, and there was no, that debate that you just, the paragraph that you just led with, how come it wasn't discussed beforehand? That's my question.
Well, it was discussed in committee, we came out of it 2-to-1. We can go further and discuss any questions you have towards it.
You know, before that, that's when I would like to see it, is say, hey, let's punt it to committee, let's discuss it in committee. It should start here, go to committee, come out of committee, then go. What this happened is it originated committee, it sprung up, I look, I have an ordinance on my hands. The other question I have, okay, I'm not thrilled with the first part of this, is where are we gonna come up with the additional, I'll call about $10,000 it's gonna cost per year? And let me explain where that comes from. Okay, first, it's $3 an hour times 2,080. Everyone knows what 2080 is, okay? That's the amount of hours that you work in a year. Multiply it by 3, we're at $6 grand. You do a little bit of overtime, you could be up to another grand or so at $4.50 an hour additionally. Then you're gonna start looking at fringe benefits. That's 20% of the original. So now you're up to almost 10 grand, and that's into perpetuity. So how are we gonna sit here and budget for this? And why are we doing this discussion now before budget talks when we should be doing it afterward?
Well, your numbers, you just keep kind of doing your estimates, and it sounds good, but you're talking about things that we discussed in committee. We discussed the responsibilities that not only have changed for the foreman, but the fact that this salary hasn't been looked at in almost 30 years. You have to talk about fair and equitable salaries when it comes to your employees. Now, like I said, I did do research into surrounding towns, and we were not even at the lowest. We were so far below the lowest. So when you look at that, we can have a discussion about the number if you would like. You know, there is room for compromise, certainly. But when you look at how low our pay is for our employees in compared to the other town, it's kind of hard to just unsee that. It's kind of hard to not want to give somebody their fair and equitable due.
Okay, so I understand that, I don't like how you originated up to it. It should have been discussed here, the issue should have started here. That's the reality.
Well, we're discussing it now, and we can discuss it.
As it shows up on my desk on a Friday.
Wait, I'm sorry.
And
I apologize if I
Yeah.
may. So, you know, I think we have discussed the idea. Clint Dixon, our superintendent, during budget committee meetings last year, asked for that increase in the budget committee meetings. We didn't bring it up, it never brought up to the entire council, but it was something that I remember him bringing up again, and it was something that I had heard him ask last year. So when it was brought up into the subcommittee, it was not new information, at least to me, and I believe that Councilwoman Tedisco was there. I'm not sure if you were there at the time, but it was definitely something that I was aware of as a possibility. And so I think also, you know, aside from the obviously process that you're upset with, I mean, I think the issue really comes in some sense from, we're talking about whether or not are we paying our employees a fair and equitable salary compared to other towns? I think that's the conversation we should have. Now, if we say that we think this is fair for the job that he's doing, then that's fine. I mean, that's a stance that I think you can have. But based on the obligations that we've seen our foremen have to do, and based on what Clint has informed us, how those obligations have changed, I believe it is fair to compensate him based on those grounds.
I have something to add to that. I mean, my big thing is that this is going on in the committee, so we're not privy to this, and I was also not privy to whatever Clint said last year. And if we're talking about fair and equitable, nobody said life was fair and equitable. I'd love to give everybody a $50 million raise. We just obviously can't do it. And the surrounding towns are a lot more, they just have a lot more money. I mean, you know, I think he's a great guy, he does a great job.
Hold on.
I'm sorry.
We can't talk
All right.
about people,
Well, I mean-
and I've deliberately not interjected
Okay, all right.
because we're talking about a position and a pay, and so far, everything's been okay.
Okay, all right, so, I mean, basically it boils down, for me, that, you know, I think you should give it more time, you know, that's all. I mean, I
But
don't see
again,
why.
this isn't about a certain employee.
No, I'm not
It's
talking about
a
employee, that was
position.
my mistake, I didn't mean to say that. I'm talking about the position.
So the position, though, this hasn't been looked at, the salary. Ms. Ariema, if you can correct me, it's been close to 30 years, I believe.
Everything looked at since I worked here, in
Yeah.
22 years.
So I don't know how much more time you take to look at something like this.
Well, I haven't looked at it for 30 years. I've been here for 2. So, I mean, you know, I'm not talking about any of that. I just think that, you know, with everything else going on, you know, I don't see why I can't wait till next year. That's all.
Well, that's a position to take, that's fine. But in terms of waiting to see, nothing's going to change. I mean, this hasn't been looked at, and it was time to,
Well, the taxes change. You know, it all changes, you know. I mean, you know how I feel about it. As much as I would like everybody to have unbelievable raises, I'm sorry, I can't go along with
This
it.
discussion kind of morphed, I have to say, from a discussion of the process, in other words, whether or not the ordinance ought to be on, which I think is a fair discussion for agenda, to the merits of the ordinance, which is an entirely different issue, and it's properly debated if the ordinance is to be introduced or is
Okay.
removed. I don't mean to be overly
yeah.
No, that's
technical.
No, that's it.
but-
So are
but
you
the- So the
suggesting
question,
that
the
we
proper
table it
question for
and then
the agenda
discuss it?
session is whether or not the ordinance ought to be on at all. Not whether it's a good ordinance, a bad ordinance, et cetera.
I
But why
I
don't
just
we
want to shed
discuss it now?
some light on the process, to Mr. Renard's point, and to answer what was first brought up. A committee has a certain realm that it's in charge of. Streets and roads, it's quite clear from the title what it's in charge of. Laws and license, police, etc. If within that committee of 3, one person or multiple committee members decide, hey, this is in our purview, I want to talk about this, whether it's a fence ordinance and laws and license, or it's the foreman salary in streets and roads, I think that's fair. And to have a committee make a recommendation, which it clearly did, it carried out of committee 2 to 1, they have the power to direct it on ordinance. Whether, I mean, that's just how it is. So a committee can do that. Not every idea has to start at a full council meeting and then be brought to a certain committee. So I don't think that's a fair debate we should be having.
Nonsense.
We can just simply
Clean up the
debate.
lake.
But the
But
thing is,
see,
Sarah,
It just
the tone is very
But
harsh.
but we also can't pick and choose. There's been many of times in the last couple of years where many members of this council have been here along with me, where a committee works on something and they get it onto the agenda without having a big discussion first. And that's moved forward and no one has said anything until this moment. So I think procedurally, it's really okay. There's multiple ways of doing something, and this is technically fine. Otherwise, Mr. Renaud, I'm sure, would have said, you cannot put forth this ordinance at the council meeting, so.
but this is
And
the
that's
first time
fine.
I'm seeing it.
And
But
Councilman
there's
Sarah-
other times, there's ordinances we see for the first time when we get our agenda on Friday. And we have time from Friday to Tuesday to also ask about that, if we have a question
Well,
from
I
Ms.
have to
Ariema or
say
Mr. Renaud. We don't have to wait until the Tuesday council meeting to say it. So perhaps maybe we can shift the discussion to the merits of, do we support doing this or not? To Council President Blumenstock's point, I agree with you. Sometimes with facts, once you know them, you can't unsee them. So, that, you really can't unsee them, and I think that's what I take away with, where something could have been maybe inequitable for years, but then you find out that it is inequitable, and then you say, well, because it has been for years, we're just gonna leave it that way. I can't really get behind that line of thinking. So given the facts, I mean, I'm open-minded, wanna hear the discussion. If you have the numbers from other towns, I'd be more than happy to listen to those. You said we're not even at the low end before. This would bring us simply to the low end. Our town here, our police department, has the second lowest paid police department in all of Union County, second to Winfield Park. But does that mean that we don't look at our police department salaries and say, are we being at least equitable?
Can
This-
I don't mean to interrupt.
Sure.
Can we do a very, very brief executive session? I need to find out something about this.
Before we do that, can I make a comment? Being on that committee,
No, I think I was waiting. That's what he said.
I would really like to do it then.
Go ahead. Mr. Renaud, you want to do executive?
Go ahead, I need to find something. Go ahead. I mean, it's like, hopefully what you have to say is not going to get in the way of what I need to find
I
out.
need to get prepared though, so if you want to do that now.
Yes.
So in my short realm, this was brought to my attention And in the little time I had to research why the decision was made, my question is, why wasn't this decision made 5 months ago when he became, or that person became the foreman? Why now? That's my question, so that's all, and thank you.
I don't know if that, really
Well, we
relevant at
can't
this
answer that
point.
question either, because again, I'm afraid that we're going to get into personnel issues, which we can't do. You can talk about a salary, you can talk about a position, we can't talk about people.
And I am fine talking and discussing if you have a different point of view as the process, or if a different point of view as to the merits of the position. I just do take exception to the fact that the tone is so harsh, Councilman Sarno, that you can bring this up without getting so completely angry. So I just, it doesn't lend itself to a good conversation.
People
So,
constantly insult and grade people, constantly. That's why I'm getting upset. That's what I feel.
I don't know how I insulted anybody by bringing this up. So, I think we should
Mayor, if this
discuss
goes
it
again,
further in
I'm sure you'll
executive session if
hit
you
that
guys.
gavel.
Okay, we need to do an executive session because I need to find something out before I can tell you whether you can even go ahead with the ordinance. That's what I need to.
Okay, that was.
Sarah Ann, are you ready?
I am.
Please.
Resolution 18047A, closed session resolution authorizing executive session for the purpose of discussing personnel and matters of attorney-client privilege relating to the above and in accordance with NJSA 10-4, closed session, whereas it is necessary for the mayor and council of the borough of Warwick to conduct an executive session closed to the public in order to discuss the above listed matters. Now therefore be it resolved that the council of the borough of Warwick hereby moves to go into executive session in accordance with the provisions of the Open Public Meetings Act for the purpose of discussing subjects stated above, and be it further resolved that the matters discussed in and the minutes of the closed session shall be disclosed to the public when the reason for confidentiality no longer exists.
Do I have a motion to pass the resolution?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in favor? Roll call, Ms. Sarah, sorry. Roll call, Ms. Sarah Young.
Councilwoman Kukrow.
Yes.
Councilman Lazaro.
Aye.
Councilman McCormick.
Aye.
Councilman Sarno.
Aye.
Councilman Disco.
Aye.
And Council President Blumenthal.
Aye.
Go to the conference room.
This will not be long.
Chief? Thank you. Good timing. Okay, we'll continue our discussion.
Are we continuing with the discussion?
All right, nobody wants to discuss it, or we'll move on.
Does anybody want to continue the discussion?
I wanted, do you have those numbers, Council President?
I do.
Okay, I think that might be beneficial for the rest of the council and the public, and it's gonna be, you know, up for introduction
Mr.
later.
Anand, can we talk about neighboring town salaries?
Sure.
Fanwood is $8, Westfield is $6, Cranford is $7. Plainfield is, it works out to almost $7. Scotch Plains is a little different, so it's hard to get Scotch Plains, they're civil service, so it doesn't
Yep.
compare. So we're still at the lower end. In terms of why it wasn't done when we were doing foreman, that was when I was made aware, when we were undergoing the process. And it didn't seem right at that point to, as we're choosing or interviewing for an employee, to, at that point, change the salary and bring it up at that point. I mean, we were already in the middle of the process, and so it just timing-wise would seem kind of odd, so. And at that point, we were towards the end of the year, so now we're going into the new year, and it's time to look at things.
Because I disagree, and I have a but, why wasn't it discussed back then?
Well, it was discussed. It was discussed last year, as you heard Councilman Lazaro say, even
So-
at budget.
So why didn't they make that pay
They
raise at
they
that time?
decided at that point not to do it. It didn't make it out of committee. I suppose.
Prior to this
Out of
year,
budget.
every time a foreman came in, he was granted, or she was granted $3, $4, $6. How did they get to where they are today?
We only have one foreman, and then
Prior to this foreman?
we only had one for, I don't know how long before that. So it was the same foreman, and they had the $3.
And at the same conversation, the new foreman agreed to the pay raise he had gotten, the $3?
We can't talk about
Okay, I'm sorry.
individuals. We're only talking about a position
Okay,
and a salary. That's
Sorry.
all we can discuss. If you want to discuss, if you want to talk about personnel, again, you'd have to Rice notice somebody, then you've got to, it's a whole different story.
To piggyback maybe on where the councilman was going, just to be very clear, for the last 30 years, the pay above a laborer was $3 for doing the job of foreman.
Yes, that is.
Okay, so that's what's been happening for 30 years. And when looking at other towns, it's not really equitable. It's very clear from those numbers, 3 compared to 6, 7, or 8 is totally different. That's 50% less. And I don't believe that the position in Garwood should warrant a 50% less pay, now that I know this information. I feel if the council members, as individuals, if we have our opinion on whether we accept this salary, this new salary or not, why not move forward and vote yes, no, and see how it goes? Unless anybody wants to put forth another idea, other than just voting it up for the, up to $6, or voting it down, because we want to keep it at 3. It's a $3 difference we're talking about, so.
But it's also $10,000 a year. That, you can't refute
Sure, but,
that.
and you can also look back and say, wow, for 30 years, all that time, we were actually not really equal to other towns.
But maybe
We
the work
we
here is
essentially
different.
saved
We're not
money.
talking about it.
I have to disagree respectfully, that I do not believe that just because we're Garwood, our employees in any department are less. And we're talking about a 50% difference when compared to our neighbors. Yikes, yikes.
Well, I'm sorry, yikes or not, we're not compared to our neighbors. Okay, I'm not comparing us to our neighbors.
And,
So-
but, and you know what, you totally have your right to view it that way. I don't want to view Garwood in a bubble. I want to know what's going on in other places. And so, as Council President Bloomstock said, once you know something, you can't unknow it. So, I think I've said all I want to say about it. I'm open to seeing if it goes and passes at this $6, at this increase, or if it fails, or if somebody else has a third idea, I'm open to listening, but.
So does that mean the conversation is cut off by what you just said?
No, I'm not cutting it off at all. In fact, I'm doing the opposite.
So what type of
Inviting a third
precedent are
way.
we setting for the rest of borough employees by only talking about this specific position? So this specific position is now being discussed for this X amount of dollar raise. What happens to the people in the borough that may be in a smaller class underneath?
Okay. Ms. Arian?
What happens to that?
So, we just approved a new PDA contract, so they all get raises. That's effective 1/1/18. We just approved it in December, was that right?
Yes.
The last council meeting in December. So all police officers will get, for the next 5 years, 5-year contract. DPW also has their raises, their contract ends, I think, the end of 2019. And the rest of us, there's very few after that, will be looked at during the budget process for increases by the finance committee. That's how we do it every year. And then when we do the budget, the finance committee discusses that with the rest of the council, and they generally give the same thing that the other people got.
So you probably answered my question without even knowing that you answered it, but you talked about a contract and you talked about a 1 to 2 year difference in when the pay scale goes. So
Every year.
it's not a year. He had, this person, this position has not been
I'm
1
not
year
arguing with
yet.
you asked me a question, I gave you the answer, I'm not, I'm not arguing.
And
I
I'm,
just gave you information.
Again, it's not about the person we're talking about.
position,
the
I'm
position.
sorry to clarify that again, I don't wanna.
No, you didn't do
The
it. I'm
position.
just saying, I think you're getting into how long somebody's been employed, and that's not what we're talking about the position and not a particular employee.
I'm
So
not talking about the specific employee.
Well, that specific employee has been in that position a specific amount of time.
Right.
So I think that's what
Trying to-
we're trying to stay away from, because that's when Mr. Renard made a comment earlier. So,
I think at this point, the discussion is the full focus, and I think we should move forward and just let the ordinance be voted on in the regular meeting. That being said, Councilman Tedesco?
thank you, Mayor. So,
Wait a minute, I need to interject, and on this workshop agenda, at least my copy, it still says Councilman Petrozelli when it's supposed to be Councilman Corman, so he needs his turn before he goes to this.
He went before me, it had been passed and it went to me.
Yeah,
That's
okay.
correct.
it was
So
actually
we
correct
need-
on our
We were,
copy.
no, we were
Your
fine.
copy's correct, my
Yes.
copy's not correct. So,
Yes, we're fine.
but the end comes before, did he get it?
Yes, you got a
I
shot.
missed it?
Yes.
Thank you.
They didn't just ask you the questions.
No,
No,
I
no, no,
mean,
that was
his term
previous,
is offered.
on his report.
Yeah, he didn't give me a report.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure, Mayor. First, I would like to talk about something I brought up at the last council meeting and workshop as well, that Councilwoman Blumenstock and I have been working together to create a letter to go to the businesses in town about that volunteer rewards card program I spoke about at our last meeting, and each of you have a copy of that in front of you tonight. I hope you've been able to take a look at it. We've already casually discussed this idea with a number of businesses who already expressed interest, which is really wonderful. Essentially, this program invites all local businesses in Garwood to participate by providing 10% off their services or purchases to qualifying volunteers of our borough who have the card. This is a great way to thank our volunteers and to encourage shopping locally right here in town. We want to continue to promote a strong business and community partnership. Once we hear from interested businesses, by the March 15th deadline, we can then move on to the next step of having the cards made up, and then from there, we can get these in the hands of our active volunteers. Really see this as a win-win. Just wanted to let everyone see the draft before we go to print on that, but we do have about a little over 150 businesses in town, so, I mean, we don't need all 150 names on the card, it would be wonderful, but, you know, obviously that's not really feasible. But if we get some participation, which I'm very encouraged we will, I think this will be great. The next couple items I have, I just want to say a couple thank yous. I want to thank Councilman Rich McCormack for meeting me last night. I know a resident had brought this up at the last council meeting about having people cross the aisle and talk more, and it was a very positive conversation, and I appreciate his time. And I know that we're both, while sure, like any people, we'll disagree on issues, you know, we're both very much committed to working together for the residents of Garwood, which is what this is all about. Another quick thank you to Council President Blumenstock for helping me with the soup and cracker drive. She really ended up spearheading most of that, and thank you for all of that, because a lot of soup and crackers were collected, and many senior citizens were able to take them, and they even took them to their friends and family that maybe it's a little hard to leave the house. So it's really a nice thing in honor of Martin Luther King Jr. The last thing I have is an update about the joint committee that the mayor has established for planning, and the planning board members and the council members. Mr. Renaud had mentioned that this committee has been negotiating for what we call the paperboard site, and I just want to bring everyone up to speed a little bit more, that there was an original plan presented to us, but the developer ended up revising that and then presenting us a new one, and it was really not a desirable plan to the committee, and we gave feedback to that. Our planner has conveyed that message back to the developer as well. So at this time, we're waiting on K&K Developers to give us a couple new concept plans that we can vet through our committee. We are hopeful to have a meeting next week, as Mr. Renaud said earlier. Once a plan is more acceptable to the subcommittee, I certainly want to see us present that to the mayor and council to get the whole council involved in this process and see how we can best move down that path once we get a more desirable concept plan that we're looking at. So that's all I have there.
And first, I'd like to say that I thank you for the report for the joint committee, but as I mentioned in the past, I would like to see that come from the whole committee. I appreciate you coming forward with the information, but I think you as the representative of the council and Mr. Greek, the chairman of the planning board, should put your heads together and make a joint effort, make the minutes go.
So you know, that report that I just gave was not word for word, but the message was in an email to the
No.
subcommittee, so everybody was,
Like I said, I will just leave it at that. Okay.
sounds good.
Okay. All right, move on, public comment, anyone in the audience who wishes to address the mayor and council, please step to the microphone, state your full name and address, please give your comments in 3 minutes.
Jim Matthew, 335 Hazel Avenue. Thank you very much, Mayor. Mayor, I just want to know, where do you stand on this matter of the increase for the foreman salary?
Well, first of all, I have to say that I believe in the committee's system, and the committee discussed it properly, and I would support their efforts.
Okay, so if it's a 3-3 vote, you would
That's
vote
correct.
in favor of it?
Mhm.
Okay. Why does the public have a copy of the ordinances that are on the agenda tonight?
Because they're at the introduction phase, it's at the public hearing when they're out. to the
And
public.
that's when we have the discussion.
They're never out.
Then there, and there's no way we can get a copy of it?
I can give you a copy.
Yeah.
Okay, that would be good. I'm a little perplexed. Councilwoman Tedisco refused to support an increase in the LoSAP for our unpaid fire department until the budget was approved. However, she's in favor of increasing the salary before we even consider this budget this year. So I wonder what accounts for that change. The other thing is, I'm hearing two different stories, Mayor, from Council President Blumenstock. Council President, you were just flipping through the contract and you noticed this disparity yourself? Is that where this came from?
I'll answer if you're all done.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
when you're
then
finished,
the other
take all your
story
questions.
that I got from Councilman Lazaro was that this came up in Finance Committee last year. So I want to know where this came from. The other thing is, I think Councilman Lazaro really brought up an excellent point. This should be in the Finance Committee. I also don't understand why this is going to be voted on before the budget is approved. This would be exactly what Sarah Tedisco was against a year or two ago, voting for a LoSAP increase, which was pennies for our unpaid fire department that risked their lives for us. And I don't understand why we would put something together that would cost us $10,000 a year. So I'm a little perplexed about what the difference is with Councilwoman Tedisco's position and what the story is about where this came from. But I think, Mayor, if you can go ahead and solve this by making this the Streets and Roads Committee's recommendation to the Finance Committee, that to me sounds like where it should go. The other thing is, I would like to ask, where are we with the athletic field complex?
I will give a full report during that.
If there is a report coming
There is a
later?
report coming today.
In particular, Mayor, have you gotten involved in this?
I've been to Ms. Ariana's office a couple times this week, and she's been on the phone with them constantly, yes.
Okay, so do we have a projected opening date for the athletic field
I'll
complex?
give a full report with all that information,
Okay.
as much as I can tell you.
And do we have an estimate on how much this is costing us now?
That also will be.
That will be, so we'll have a projected opening date and I'm not finished with my question.
Sorry.
We'll have a projected opening date, and we will have an estimate of how much this is gonna cost.
I will give you a full report of the information that I have at this time. I don't know if that particular information is
All right,
going
well,
to be available.
We're not too formal around here.
So-
Mark, you wanna tell us? I'm paying for it.
Well, we also are having an executive session in regards to this, so I just don't want to tell you something that I may not be able to provide for you.
Okay. And how long has this been closed now? The athletic field complex house?
No, sure, I did not know. Okay.
I mean,
I thought we were,
we can, they're prepared.
okay.
I mean, does anyone know? Mayor, do you know how long it's been closed for?
I'd say almost a year.
Almost a year.
Yes. Okay, and I must say, Mr. Matthew, we're all as frustrated, and this thing has become overbearing. We're trying to do the best we could with it. And I know that Councilman Lazaro and former Councilman Petrozelli have always been top-notch in their execution of their information. So I think that's enough said at this point for myself.
All right. And I just want to say, you know, we're entering into a perilous budget season. So I think the irresponsibility of voting for a raise for this position when we have a revow coming up. We don't know the pension and health care contributions for this year. And we don't know the RBSA. And Councilwoman Tedisco spearheaded, you know, the charge on this, pointing out how variable and sometimes arbitrary it seems the increases in RBSA are. So now we're going to go ahead and pass an ordinance to give about a $10,000 increase in salary and benefits, and you got all these bogeys on the horizon. I just don't understand it. All right? And thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman, would you like to respond? What was that?
The one for myself about LoSAP?
Yes.
Sure, Mayor.
Thank you.
I know to recall my last 7 years on the council, it was about 4 years ago when the council actually, the first time, increased LoSAP for the first time it had been in about 10 years or something? Since it was instituted. And as I recall, I've always been very supportive of LoSAP for our fire department. As far as budget procedure, I mean, I'm not finance chair this year. In the past, you know, I've done things a certain way where I've brought up operating expenses at the, you know, budget meetings, and also even capital purchases, for example, at the budget meetings, and I would hold off until March or April to have those discussions with the full council. But last year, we approved the garbage truck, which was a bond ordinance before the budget process, and no one said anything about that. So I don't know if it's set in stone, but you know, that's all I really have to say. I've always supported LoSAP for the firefighters, and that's really all I have to say about procedure in terms of timing. I mean, it's been one way in the past, but last year is a perfect example of how it was a bit different.
Thank you.
Councilman, well, Mr. Matthew, there's nothing contradictory in our statements between myself and Councilman Lazaro. When we began the process of hiring a new foreman, I obviously was going through all of the paperwork, and that came about, and in the course of some of those meetings, I had discussions with the superintendent about the salary rate and where it came from, and then began some of my research into where the number came from, how long it's been. And in that course, I did hear that it was discussed last year at Finance, and nothing became of it, and that's when I decided to bring it back to committee.
I specifically recall an email from the Borough Administrator going to the Streets and Roads Committee telling you this. Are you aware of that email?
I wrote an email? What did I say?
You discussed looking into this issue.
Did
I'll send it to
you
you.
remember?
This portion is hearing of the citizens, let's go back and forth at this point. Lazaro, do you have any final comments?
Sure. You know, I'll say, and I'll give a full report as much of the information I have. So without going too much into detail, you know, we are working extremely hard to make sure that this rec center complex is being done correctly. And if the process, you know, unfortunately is frustrating because of how slow government works, because, you know, we are a small town and it is hard to get contractors, which was part of the reason, as we said before, we had to wait many, we had to go through 2 bids before we got an actual contractor to actually be rewarded the contract. And then we have to vote for it. So all of these things take time. And at the same time, it's also important that we not rush through things so that things are not done incorrectly. So while I am certainly hopeful to push forward in getting this done as quickly as possible, we want to make sure, first and foremost, that it's done correctly. That's it.
Thank you. Chief, can you just hit the air conditioning again? It's getting kind of warm.
I mean, I'll crack the door until my dress falls up over my head.
Oh, please, no. No offense.
He's gonna put it on. I need you to put it on.
Okay, does anyone else have some public comment at this point?
Al Del Conte, 545 Locust Avenue. Good evening, Mayor and council members. I see our new garbage truck is out on the road. Congratulations to all who participated in making that happen. I know it's been sitting for months waiting for paperwork, but it's good to see it's out on the road. Speaking of roads, I had brought it up before. If you're not aware of it, I will make you aware of it. Roads seem to be a thing for me. In front of 400 Center Street, road was just repaved last year. There is major damage occurring to the street right now as we speak. It's a shame with the rec complex, with what's going on down there. Nobody up here is to blame for that. The contractor that handled it really gave the borough a hard time over the years that it took him with his faults and excuses for the project to be dragged on, and his quality of workmanship obviously is coming out to be extremely poor. And now we are going to have to pay for that, unfortunately. Maybe you can go after the insurance company for water damage. I don't know. Wasn't privy to all of that information. But that's a shame about all of that. I wish that the residents that were here, or at least myself, would have been invited to indulge the water company when they were here before. Close eye needs to be watched on the water company. They tell you they do good work. To a point, they do. Their finished work, one of the council members brought up finished work with the seating and so on. It's horrible. Okay. When they were finished in front of my house, I was picking up rocks before I cut the grass. They did not rake or spread topsoil. They just came in and threw seed down, hay, and as you know, I stay on top of them and I complain about them all the time. So they need to be watched very closely. And I think that'll be it for about right now. I think.
If I may, Mr. Conti, as far as the garbage truck and our paperwork, I called down to DEP myself and misplaced our paperwork. I just, you know, it's just that.
It's a government entity.
That's correct.
It
Okay.
takes time.
Like I said, small point. Thank you. Anyone else?
Thank you, Mayor. Bellagio, 313 4th Avenue. Just wanted to say with regard to the foreman, I was on council, as everybody knows, for a number of years. We did not raise that. So my opinion is, personally, we waited this long, okay? Why just can't we do it during budget time? All right? So raise it $1, $2, $3. Okay, just do what is fair. All right, that's my opinion.
Thank you. Anyone else at this time? Seeing none, do I have a motion to adjourn this meeting?
I'll make that motion.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Shall we move on?
Yes.
All rise for a moment of silence to salute to the flag. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Notice of this meeting was provided to the Westfield Leader, advertised on January 4, 2018. Notification was sent to the Star Ledger and formally posted. The municipal public bulletin board in the office of the municipal clerk, informing the public in timely place according to the revisions of the Open Public Meeting Law, Chapter 231, PL 1975. Roll call, Ms. Ariano.
Mayor Lombardo.
Here.
Councilman Kukrow.
Here.
Councilman Lazaro.
Here.
Councilman McCormick.
Here.
Councilman Sarno.
Here.
Councilwoman Tedisco.
Here.
And Council President Blumenthal.
Here.
Ms. Ariano, minutes.
Regular workshop and executive session minutes of the mayor and council held on January 9, 2018.
Motion to accept the minutes as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Ms. Ariano, communications.
New Jersey State League of Municipalities Mayor's Advisory.
Receive and file.
Township Union Resolution.
Receive and file.
Garwood Planning Board minutes.
Receive and file. Move on to ordinances, introduction. Ms. Ariano, please read ordinance 18-01 by title only.
Yes, Mayor. An ordinance providing for the compensation of regular police officers of the Borough of Garwood.
Do I have a motion to introduce ordinance 1801?
So moved, Mayor.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilwoman Kukrow.
Yes.
Councilman Lazaro.
Aye.
Councilman McCormick.
Yes.
Councilman Sarno.
Aye.
Councilwoman Tedesco.
Aye.
And Council President Blumenthal.
Aye.
Thank you. Ms. Ariano, please read ordinance 18-02 by title only.
Yes, Mayor. An ordinance fixing the salaries and wages for the Department of Public Works of the Borough of Garwood, County of Union, State of New Jersey.
Do I have a motion to introduce ordinance 18-02?
I'll make that motion, Mayor.
Second.
Roll call, please, Ms. Ariano.
Councilwoman Kukrow.
No.
Councilman Lazaro.
Aye.
Councilman McCormick.
No.
Councilman Sarno.
No.
Councilwoman Tedesco.
Aye.
Council President Blumenthal.
Aye.
Mayor Lombardo.
Aye. Council standing committee reports and other reports, please. Councilwoman Tedesco.
Thank you, Mayor. I am pleased tonight to recommend Mr. Edward Moronsky for the position of full-time police officer. Mr. Moronsky has been a resident of Garwood for over 21 years and is currently serving as a sheriff's officer in the Union County Sheriff's Department. Prior to his service as a sheriff's officer, Mr. Moronsky was employed as a corrections officer with the New Jersey Department of Corrections. Mr. Moronsky received his associate's degree in criminal justice from Union County Community College. Mr. Moronsky has cited his desire to give back to his community as a driving force in his decision to become an officer with the Garwood Police Department. Mr. Moronsky's appointment will fill the void created from the resignation of Dylan Cosgrove, who will be seeking other opportunities with the Union County Prosecutor's Office. Secondly, the renovations to the evidence and records room have been completed. Now comes the time-consuming step of reconciling all reports and evidence to be stored in the room. Fortunately, with the help of interns from the Kane University Criminal Justice Department, this task will be completed in a fraction of the time with no additional cost to the borough. The police department has entered into an internship agreement with Kane University, which has provided 4 students to assist us. Each student is required to donate 120 hours of service to the department for the semester. In return, the students will receive a behind-the-scenes look at what a career in law enforcement is like. That's all for my report, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Public Health, Councilman McCormick.
Yes, Mayor. The Board of Health meeting was held on January 16th. The proposed budget for 2018 is $51,581. That's up 1.5% from 2017, which round number is $762. The public health nurse spoke about lead testing for children and emphasized to keep an eye out for foreign toys that can contain high levels of lead. In one case, a home was completely tested. However, nothing was found during the testing. Then the nurse made a meeting with the child and the mother and noticed during the interview that the child would keep taking his wrist and rubbing it to his lips. At that time, the health nurse requested to the mother if they can please take the bracelet to be tested. The results came back at very high levels. On December 17th, the blood pressure screening for the seniors and 22 seniors were screened and educated. The Garwood rat issue will be discussed at our next meeting on March 21st at 6 p.m. And that's all from my report, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Streets and roads ecology, Council President Blumenthal.
Thank you, Mayor. In addition to regular garbage pickup, the Department of Public Works has been busy washing and maintaining the snow vehicles. as well as washing all vehicles in our fleet. They've continued picking up Christmas trees every Wednesday and bringing them over to Fanwood, and have taken down the Christmas decorations around town, including snowflakes on the light poles and decorations around Borough Hall. And as was said by Mr. Del Conte, I'm also glad to announce that we have received all the paperwork from the DEP, and our brand-new garbage truck is out on the streets. So that's all for my report, Mayor.
Thank you. Fire, Councilman McCormick?
Yes, Mayor, a short one. We have 13 people that made the LoSAP to require the 85 points, and I don't think I need to read all the names, but that's all from my report.
Thank you, sir. Finance, Councilman Sarno?
No report, Mayor.
Thank you. Buildings and Grounds, Councilman Lazaro?
Sorry, this is a long one.
It's okay. Your library reports usually longer.
This one's a long one. All right, so last Thursday, the Buildings and Grounds Committee met at Hartman Park with Brian Gates of Game Time Incorporated, along with one of its installers. We also were met there by 3 members of the Board of Education, our DPW foreman, Lenny Navarro, our engineer, Mike Disco, and Mayor Lombardo. We worked together to figure out configurations of where all the equipment would best be located to create a safe environment for all children, while making a particular emphasis to make park equipment easily accessible for special needs children. We also tried to ensure the placement of benches and tables for parents to be able to easily watch their children as they play. After the outdoor meeting, we met at Borough Hall to discuss details as we talked about a potential timeline, DPW removal of the old equipment and mulch that will save us $4,500. And we came to a final cost pricing of around $130,000. Of course, there's things that we can, little changes that we could possibly make. This would include, in that money, ADA compliant equipment with activities incorporated to promote inclusion of special needs children. The plan includes removal of majority of 1 basketball court, installation of a 2 to 5 age play area, a 5 to 12 play area, new swings with some designated for special needs children, as well as swings for parents and children to go on together, a sensory tunnel designed to specifically function for special needs children to experiment with different textures, colors, and for the encouragement of socialization. It also includes benches, picnic tables, trash receptacles, and shading that can be removed seasonally to limit exposure to the sun and keep those shades lasting longer. I will have a final itemized list with pricing for the council by the next meeting. Keep in mind that while we have voted for a bond in the amount of $160,000, $55,000 will come from the county in a matching grant, and potentially up to $25,000 will come from the Level the Playing Field grant. Also, the council did send an official letter to the Board of Education asking that if they would be interested in providing a financial contribution to the final cost, as the kindergarten students do utilize the space quite frequently. And I will be sending the final cost to the Board of Education when I get approval from this council to award the contract. So the contractor, Game Time, that has been working with us is a state-approved cooperative. Therefore, their pricing is extremely competitive as they offer a variety of different types of equipment that allow us to pick and choose from a variety of vendors that they work to fit within our budget. And they have countless successful park projects that they have completed in Union County. A state contractor means that we don't have to pay someone to write specifications for every piece of equipment and for every installation, which is extremely time-consuming and expensive. I have asked Tina to get some comparable numbers from another state contractor to ensure that we are getting fair pricing. Overall, Game Time has been extremely professional, timely, and provided assistance in applying for our grant application for the sensory tunnel. I would encourage the council at our next meeting to name Game Time as the contractor to install the park. On a completely different note, at the last council meeting during executive session, we were informed by Patagonia Roofing, our contractor to repair the rec complex, and Falcon Group, the architect that designed the specifications for repair, found that there was more damage due to water infiltration than originally estimated. Falcon has informed us that the damage seeps in farther into the complex, requiring them to prepare plans that would add to the scope of the current project. In addition, they have informed us in a report that we received today that removal of the door revealed potential structural damage. I have asked Tina to bring the lead inspector from Falcon Group to our next council meeting to discuss our options moving forward. I want to also make it clear that we have aggressively pursued fixing this problem, and I, along with the council, are committed to making sure the complex is fixed and open as soon as possible. In addition, we are also carefully collecting all appropriate information necessary to consider the option of pursuing potential litigation against the appropriate parties if it makes financial sense to do so. Finally, I think it's important to recognize that we're being extremely meticulous about this process so that we don't have any future problems with the complex. While we are all impatient about getting the building reopened and it's easy to point fingers, my focus is to making sure that we get the right people in place to allow the building to be safely opened. That's all for my report.
Thank you, Councilman. Laws and license, Councilwoman Kukrow.
No report, Mayor. Our first meeting is on the 31st.
Thank you. Recreation, Councilman Lazaro.
No report, Mayor.
Thank you. Barwood Senior Citizen Representative, Council President Blumenstock.
Thank you, Mayor. At our last meeting on the 18th, we had a guest speaker, Dr. Brian Anderson from Premier Health of Summit. Dr. Anderson is a chiropractor and a specialist in the body's lower extremities. He spoke to the club about ways to treat neuropathy and nerve disorders without medication. He believes in a non-surgical and drug-free approach to life when possible. Neuropathy can be caused by several things, the most common being diabetes, poor circulation, and autoimmune diseases. And in order to help stem the progression of neuropathy, he uses 4 steps. First, he increases blood flow, then stimulates the nerves. Third, he activates the nerves through therapy and also works to decrease inflammation. It was an informative talk and slideshow. Also at the meeting, as Councilwoman Tedisco mentioned earlier, I was able to distribute the cans of soup and boxes of crackers we were able to collect through our Soup for Seniors drive. We collected more than 150 cans of soup and dozens of boxes of crackers. So the goal of this was to collect these cans so that on bad weather days, the seniors didn't have to worry about going out to the store in snowy or icy conditions. And the members were also happy, as was said, to be able to take the soup back to their friends and family that were sick or homebound. So thank you to all that participated in the drive, especially the Liquid Church, who collected many donations for us. That's all for my report, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Library Mayor's Representative, Councilman Lazaro.
Thank you, Mayor. On Mondays in February, it's time for chess. Kids can meet after school for a supervised game of chess. 6 boards will be provided and no registration is required, but there is a limit to 12 participants. On Thursday, the 15th at 7 p.m., the Garwood Public Library will present a performance of the oldies band Rewind. These Jersey boys will perform your favorites from the 50s, 60s, and 70s. Registration is recommended and there's a limit of 40 allowed. Don't forget to check out the library passes for offering free admission to the grounds for sculpture, Intrepid, Liberty Hall, and Newark Museum. The library's regular programs include the Knitting Club every Monday and Thursday at 10:30, Kids Chess Mondays in February at 3 p.m., Book Clubs Monday, February 26th, and Thursday, February 1st. Design and STEM every Tuesday at 3 through March, Adult Craft Tuesday, February 6th at 6 p.m., Storytime every Wednesday at 10:30, Inventive Investigation STEM every Wednesday at 3 through February 21st. Lego Club January 25th, February 8th, and 22nd. Kids Craft Thursday, February 15th at 3 p.m. Movie Time every Friday at 10 a.m. The Garwood Library is open Monday through Thursday from 9 to 8 p.m., Fridays from 9 to 4:30, and Saturdays from 9 to 1 p.m. The library will be closed Monday, February 19th for President's Day. That's all for my report.
Thank you, Councilman. School Board Liaison, Councilman McCormick.
Thank you, Mayor. The meeting was conducted recently by appointed President Christine Guerrero. Mr. Gephardt, the board attorney, and Dr. Quigley explained the process by which the county superintendent, Mr. Therese, made his selection for this president. The board also observed a moment of silence for John Colin, who recently passed away. The board accepted a donation from the Knights of Columbus in the amount of $1,828.70 to be used for special needs for the students. Dr. Quigley was also appointed school safety specialist, a recently acquired position by the state at no additional cost. Mr. Peter Balos was hired as an assistant to the business administrator and replaced Mrs. Betty Jaggio, who was retired on February 1st. Dr. Quigley reported on the biannual report of violence, vandalism, and bullying. She reported that between July 1st and December 31st, 2017, there were 0 incidents of violence and so on. The 4 incidents that we reported, harassment, invitation, and bullying, one of which was a sustained case, and the board members volunteered to participate in the Hartman Park. We do. That's all from my report.
Thank you, Councilman. Celebration of public events and holiday liaison, Councilwoman Kukrow.
Thank you, Mayor. I had my first meeting for the Celebrations Committee last week, and I must say, this was my first one, and I applaud the people that have been in charge of this organization. They are filled with great ideas, which you have seen in the different events they have brought forward and implemented for the residents of Garwood. They chose their new people to head the committee for chair, co-chair, and secretary. Everyone was very friendly, the outreach was great, and I felt very welcome. The only shortcoming I saw that there was not nearly enough volunteers and committee people to do what has to be done to make the different events as successful as possible. They sure have done a great job with the limited people they have. I said I would put their flyers on my 2 Facebook pages, which I did, and I've reached out to some people to see if we can get more people on board, as this is such a worthy committee. I did get a few people that would like to help, so I'm asking this evening if there's anyone that would like to help reach out to the chairperson. They'd be most grateful for the added hands. They went over the agenda for the coming year, what has to be done, although this is not my area of expertise, as everything I was involved in was when my son was younger. I did offer my help with whatever they may need. The first event is the Easter egg hunt, so I assume I am capable of hiding some eggs. I would have to draw the line at dressing as the Easter Bunny, and that's all for my report.
Thank you. Councilwoman, just realize that once again, I have to appoint these people to the committee, which I have a problem with, so in case they come forward to you or Ms. Ariana.
Right, for the committee,
Okay,
I have
yes.
to ship them over to you.
Okay, no problem.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Union County Air Traffic Noise Advisory Board, Representative Councilman McCormick.
I have no report, Mayor.
Thank you. Special Review Committee, Councilwoman Tedesco.
No report, Mayor?
Thank you. Historical Committee, Councilwoman Tedesco.
No report, meeting tomorrow night.
Thank you. Parking Committee, Councilman Sana.
No report.
Thank you. Sarajevo, Officers Reports.
Zoning Code Enforcement Officer Lindsay Stefano, monthly report for December 2017, and Chief of Police James H. Wright, monthly reports for December 2017.
Motion to accept Officers Reports.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Moving on, public comment. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to address the mayor and council? Please step to the microphone, state your full name and address. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Seeing none, we'll move on to consent agenda, and Councilwoman Kukrow has asked me to remove 18052.
Yes.
So that being said, we have a motion to accept the amended consent agenda as presented.
So moved, Mayor.
Second?
Roll call, Ms. Ariano?
That was you, Joe, right?
Yes.
And
Mhm.
second, then. Councilman Kukrow.
Yes.
Councilman Lazaro.
Aye.
Councilman McCormick.
Aye.
Councilman Sarno.
Aye.
Councilwoman Tedesco.
Aye.
And Council President Blumenstock.
Aye.
Ms. Ariano, do you have any resolutions deleted from the consent agenda?
I do not, Mayor.
Okay, then we'll have a motion for,
Did we just delete one from the consent?
Yeah, alternate too.
yes,
Writing of-
18052. She had no addition.
Make a motion to introduce resolution 18-052.
I'll second that.
Discussion? Roll call, Ms. Ariano?
Councilwoman Kukrow.
No.
Councilman Lazaro.
Aye.
Councilman McCormick.
Aye.
Councilman Sarno.
Aye.
Councilwoman Tedesco.
Aye.
And Council President Blumenstock.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any new business of the council this evening?
I just thought of something for new business.
Okay.
All right. There's a 1-hour parking zone over by the South Avenue Crafts over here by Home Depot. They had asked me to look into this and try to make it maybe 2 hours or something longer than that. Mayor, would it be appropriate to put it to the Laws and License Committee to review since their meeting's coming up?
That's correct. That will,
Joe, where was that again?
South Avenue, the Arts Place there,
Okay.
across the street from Home Depot. The
Yep,
Arts.
thank you.
okay.
Did the art studio request 2 hours? Is that what you said?
They actually requested 3. 3 would be an anomaly. I go, I think 2 may be appropriate.
Okay.
I did
I just
discuss
thought
this
that
with
was-
Chief Wright, and I recommend the committee do the same.
We will be.
Okay, something I was gonna
He
bring
has
to the
back-to-back meetings.
I didn't know there was
so-
anything less than 2.
Oh, yeah.
Go over there, yeah.
Yes.
Well, I mean, is there one spot in the whole town that's 1 hour?
No, there's a couple.
There is?
As far as I know.
They're very limited.
But
zones that
as
are
the
one
council
hour.
said, 3's an anomaly.
We haven't changed a
It's a little more.
parking regulation on South Avenue in a while, but my recollection is that we either have to get the county's approval, or the county has to approve it. I don't remember which direction it goes in, but it's not
I assume
entirely
it
our
goes to the
decision right
engineering
now.
department.
Oh, so it goes to laws and license, and we have to ship it to the county, is that it?
I don't remember whether they have to adopt the ordinance, I think not, but I think we have to get a resolution from them off the top of my head. By the time we're ready to do it, I'll have the information. I just
Okay.
wanted to let you know that it's not just,
Yeah.
decide to do it and do
I was
it.
thinking there was no.
And the rationale behind it was, a lot of people are there for more than 1 hour, because they're there painting and whatever else, and she thought it'd be appropriate to change it, so cars don't get towed in the event.
Okay.
We're having laws and license on the 31st, Bob, so, and I'm
Okay.
assuming that's why it was, there was no requirement, and people really didn't need more than an hour parking on South Avenue.
Okay, thank you.
Needs change.
Okay, we move on to payment of claims, Ms. Ariano.
Be it resolved that the following claims as approved being the same are hereby ordered paid when properly signed and verified, and the payment of payroll as listed is hereby confirmed and ratified.
Do you have a motion to adopt payment of claims resolution?
So moved?
Second?
Roll call, Ms. Ariano.
Councilman Kukrow.
Yes.
Councilman Lazaro.
Aye.
Councilman McCormick.
Yes.
Councilman Barnard.
Aye.
Councilman Disco.
Aye.
And Council President Blumenthal.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to adjournment. The regular meeting of the mayor and council will be held on Tuesday, February 13th, 2018, in the council chambers at 7:15 p.m. Workshop session will start at 7 p.m. There will be a public hearing in council chambers on ordinance number 1801, 1802 on Tuesday, February 13th, 2018, at 7:15 p.m. or soon thereafter. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion, Mayor.
Can I comment before we adjourn?
Who seconded? I'm sorry. Thank you.
Are we going back into session?
Yeah, no, what I would like to say is I would feel very bad tonight if I left here without giving congratulations to Councilman Lazaro for all the hard work that he puts in, the amount of time it must take to give his reports. I honestly believe his heart and soul is into what he is telling us and the public, so I just want to congratulate him.
Thank you for your comments. We're done now. Done. Nobody voted no for adjournment. I never understand.
Who seconded it? I thought I made the motion to.
I seconded
You seconded it.
Aye.
That was the best one.